The modern automotive world is in a dire state. No, I'm not talking about emissions, EVs, or pricing. No. The cars of today are just so fucking boring, man. I mean, look at this lineup of crossovers ready to head to dealers. You take off the badges and you probably wouldn't be able to tell them apart. Do you remember the Pontiac Aztek or the PT Cruiser? Like, both were totally awful, but you'll never mistake an Aztek or a PT Cruiser when you see one on the road. Today on the roads, if you see any of these coming at you, you in most cases have to rely on badging, and maybe if you have a keen eye, subtle differences in headlights, taillights, or wheels to tell them apart. The only manufacturers to have a standout piece of anything in a normal lineup of cars is BMW and, well, maybe Toyota Lexus. Look, ugly or not, you see these big sniffers coming up behind you and you know who made it. Look at it this way. I guarantee you can identify some of these cars from the late 90s and early to mid 2000s without badging or factory wheels. Now, let's do the same thing with some of the cars on the market today. You see what I mean? Now, you might say it's not fair to use a two-door E92, an S13, an Evo, or even a two-door Impreza, as some consider these legendary or iconic cars compared to a Nissan Sentra, Hyundai Elantra, or Toyota Corolla. And that's my point. Cars of today are boring as fuck, and you can't get anything interesting without getting near the $50,000 price mark. Let's go to Nissan's website. Your only interesting options for cars are the new 400Z, which despite its base MSRP of just under $40K, is being sold for $60,000 or even upwards of $80,000 by dealers. For that money, you might as well save an extra $30K and buy a used R35. Or just save all that money and buy a new S550 Mustang new off the lot for as low as $35K in today's insane car market. Looking at Hyundai, they have the N-Line Veloster and Elantra, but with a starting MSRP $10,000 higher than the base model you can rent from Enterprise, I was hoping for a little more than an extra 130 horsepower, bolstered seats, a 6-speed, 19-inch wheels, and a 2.5-inch bigger infotainment screen. Now, admittedly, 130 horsepower is a pretty big jump over base, but if you're only in it for the horsepower, an extra 3,500 will put you into a Challenger RT, which makes 100 horsepower more than the Elantra N. This is a dangerous game to play. Keep going and you'll be explaining to your now ex how you went from a 32K Hyundai to an 80K Hellcat Red Eye. And that's not to speak negatively on these smaller engined cars, but the reality is you get a dude in a moderate crossover or SUV making 300 or 400 horsepower, or God forbid someone in a muscle car making 450 plus, you're getting gapped, my bud. You're getting gapped, just straight gapped. And that's not cool for a $30,000 plus car. Now, I fully understand and respect that these smaller, lower horsepower cars can be fun on both the streets and on the track. But at the $30,000 plus price point, I'd sooner buy an older, more unique car than getting out-accelerated by a soccer mom in her Explorer ST. Now, I'm going to move on, as this is quickly becoming a cars are too damn expensive rant, and a means of expressing how poor I actually am for not wanting to spend more than $60K on my next fun car. But I really stand by the fact that mid-20s to mid-$30,000 for a cool hot hatch or a cool sports sedan is just too much money to spend. Now, based on my previous comparisons, you might think that I'm a, quote, muscle car fanboy. But this isn't the case. You see, I live in a place known as the Northern Midwest. Now, some of you may know it as Flyover Central, the part of the US that makes cross-country travel boring, or the more accurate, cows and cornfields. Now, these are all true, but the one thing that we do have that's noteworthy is the truly awful weather year-round. You see, summers regularly get into the 90s with near 100% humidity, when there's not tornadoes and thunderstorms, followed by a week of tolerable weather, which swiftly transforms into temps as cold as 50 below zero most winters. This means snow, and usually a lot of it. So despite the pleas of my coworkers with 5.0 Mustangs and Mark IV Supras to get a, quote, cool rear-wheel drive car, I, as you might have guessed from the photos, daily a Subaru. And I don't like it one bit. But that is for another video. In the meantime, thank you for coming to my talk. This is Sample, signing out.
Open eye, feel the waves cut through me, hypnotized by the sound